Okay, we're going to go over the Chooserandbetween function. Chooserandbetween. What these will do is, it's basically more of a fun function. It's going to give you a random number, and it's going to randomly choose one of the choices that you pick. So let's just say we have these 3 different places. These are the places that we're thinking about having dinner at tonight, but we can't decide. If we do a normal choose function, we're going to do equals choose. Here's where you put the index number. This is your choice. So say we choose a 1, comma, and now we're going to pick all of the values, that all of our choices that are here. So say here's choice 1, choice 2, choice 3. So it comes up with McDonald's. Because see, it's choosing choice 1, and all of these are your choices. So you can have a 1, 2, or 3 here. So say if we ended up putting a 2 here, all of a sudden now this becomes Burger King because it's your second choice. But I mean, you're actually putting in the number of your choice here, so you're actually making the decision. So there's no point in doing this whole function if you're already deciding what you want. However, if you want Excel to randomly choose one of these for you, you could insert a function into here. So instead of the number 2, you can use the function RANDBETWEEN. And what RANDBETWEEN do, will pick a random number between the 2 choices that you pick. So here 1 and 3. So what this is going to do, Excel is going to randomly pick a number between 1 and 3. So it's either going to pick 1, 2, or 3 here. And then it's going to take one of these choices. Press enter, and it's the pizza place. So it must have randomly chose the number 3, because that's what it's going here. Now I can press the delete key, and it's going to randomly pick another number, which it just did, and it must have picked 1, because now it's doing the first choice. And you don't have to like write out all these choices on the side. You can put them right into here. So say we want to just type them right in. We can just type in McDonald's, comma, Burger King, comma, pizza. Click OK, and it's showing McDonald's. We press delete again, and now it randomly shows a 2, and it's Burger King. And it's just taking the choices from here, and based on the number that you have here, whatever this number is, 1 to 3, should match how many you have here. So you get an equal choice. Like if you had 4 choices here, when it's only picking a number from 1 to 3, it'll never show you the 4th choice. Conversely, if you pick a number from 1 to 4, but there's only 3 choices, if the number 4 ever comes up, it's going to give you an error because it's looking for the 4th choice, but there's only 3. So as long as you make this number match up to the number of choices, you'll have no problem. You press delete, RANDBETWEEN will recalculate and give you a new choice. Okay, we are going to go over the isError functions, which is really also very similar to the isError function, which is just one function. However, that can only be used in Excel 2007 or greater. So first we'll go through how the isError works, and then I'll finish up by showing the isError function. But what this function really will do is it checks if there's an error, and if there's an error, it'll show whatever you tell it, like either a space or a 0 or whatever you want. And if there's no error, it's just going to show the function. So a good example to show it on is the VLOOKUP, because VLOOKUP will give you the #NA error if it doesn't find the person or the term that you're looking for in the main table. So let's say we've got this. We've got a couple salespeople here, and we want to get the March sales. And here's the main table with all the salesmen and all the sales. So we're going to do a VLOOKUP, and we've got Tony as the lookup value. The table array is here, is F through I. Column index is 4 because we want the March sales. Then we put false. So this comes out 14,688. So if we look, Tony over here is the March sales, 14,688. So that's right. Now we go Gino, it shows NA, because if we look, there is no Gino in here. And the common error for Excel is to show a #NA if Gino is not showing up in the main table array. However, if you have a big function, you don't always want to show show it as like #NA all throughout your spreadsheet. You might want it to show up as 0 because basically Gino has 0 marked sales because there is no Gino in the salesman. So say we want this to show up as a 0 instead of #NA, because you can't even do calculations. If you wanted to add this up, you can't even do a calculation on this because this #NA is going to throw off your formula. So we could do the if isError function. So to do that, we need to go up to here and we just type it right in here. And we start off by typing if, because that's going to be our function, and if. And okay, what's your criteria? The criteria is isError, parentheses, and it's going to look at this formula, parentheses. So it's saying, is this an error? If this is an error, comma, now value if true. What do we want to put if this is an error? We want it to be a 0. And if it's false, what do we want to put? We want the actual VLOOKUP statement. So we can copy and paste the VLOOKUP. Do Control C, go over to here, Control V, and then we paste it in. Now put an extra parentheses to end the if statement. Press OK. There. Now we've got this whole function here, and it's still showing the same amount because it didn't find an error, so it shows the 14,688. But if we copy this down, now Gino shows up as a 0 because there's no Gino here, and this is what we want. We want it to say, is this an error? Yes, it is an error. So put a 0. So our function worked fine. This can be used in any of the Excels, but if you're using Excel 2007 or greater, you can do a little easier function by just doing the isError function. So to do that, what we can do, let's go back to here. I'm going to just copy the VLOOKUP, just to have it, Control C. Now I'm going to delete this formula out, and we're going to insert a function called isError. And here is what's the value that we want to put. So I just copy and pasted our VLOOKUP right into here. So if there's no error, this comes out to 14,688. We put our VLOOKUP. If there is an error, we put a 0. We click OK, and it comes out to the 14,688. If we copy it down, and this shows a 0. So it ends up coming to the same result, but doing it this way, it's just a little bit easier. You don't have to nest functions, and that's always a good thing because then you can just use this isError. I mean, there is basically a nested function in here. This VLOOKUP is within this isError, but with the isError, you have to do a couple nests, and it makes it a little more difficult. But those are two different ways to get around the #NA problem, and I hope this helps. Thanks a lot. Okay, we're going to go over a nested function here, the if and function. What this is going to do is going to give you a if function which will check the and criteria. The and usually will have multiple criteria which you're going to check. And if all those criteria are equal to true, then the if function will work and give you the true value. If they're not all true, then it'll give you the false value. So let's say we have this listing here of salesmen. You get the different people who are salespeople and all their sales. And say we want to use an if and function to calculate a bonus. So say the bonus is if they have sales of over $9,000 in each month, will they get a bonus? Then the bonus, I mean, if it's over $9,000 a month, they'll get a bonus of say $1,000. If it's not over $9,000 a month, then they don't get a bonus. So we can start off by just doing the and function, just to show you again how that works. So if this is greater than 9,000, comma, this greater than 9,000, comma, this greater than 9,000. Press enter. So it's false. So false, false, true, and false. So this is the only one that's going to receive a bonus. So we did our and function right in here, but we want to relay this into an if statement to see if these are true, then you do the true value. If they're not true, you do the false. So we already have this here, so we can just start typing our if statement. So if parentheses and, then we got our and function, comma, if it's true, it's going to give you it's going to show you the true result. So always the true result is the first part of an if statement, and the false part is the second part, which is really the third overall, the last part of the if statement, which is the third criteria. So we press enter and it's okay. So now we got 0. We're going to copy this down, and now you notice this is the only one that has a bonus, and that's because all of these are over 9,000. See, 9,000, 9,000, 14,000. Those are all over 9,000. So that's what our main criteria in this function was. So it's going to give you the true value. All of these, like here, this isn't over 9,000, so all of a sudden this becomes false. So it gives you the second part, which is the 0, and that's the false statement. So that's what the if and function will do. Combined, this is a very powerful function that can really help you with different analysis.
Okay, here we're going to go over the IndexMatch function.
This is similar to the VLOOKUP function. It's more powerful than the VLOOKUP function. The VLOOKUP will pull from a table, but it can only move left or right. The IndexMatch can pull from a table, but it can move any way you want. It can move left to right, right to left, and it just makes it a lot more versatile for what you need. The only thing is it's not used as much because you have to use 2 functions in one, which makes it a lot more difficult to train. But once you master it, you really know a powerful tool. So we're going to go over the IndexMatch function here. Let's say we've got this table here. We've got a list of a couple salesmen, and we got the division, and we got a couple months of sales. And like here's our main table array. And we want to pull. First, we want to pull Marty's division, and we want to pull in that information from this table. So I mean, it's such a small table. You could look. I mean, it's Marty's here, and he's in the West Division. If we did the VLOOKUP function, you could look up Marty in here, but then it would only go this way. So you could only pull different sales from Marty. We'll go over first. I'm going to break these out by going over the index part first, and then the match part. So let's look over let's do the index part of the function first. So we're going to insert a function, index. Click OK, and what's the array? First is the array is what do you want to pull, and we're trying to pull the division here. So we're going to take this and we're just going to highlight all the records of what could possibly be our division. And then here we can pick a row number and a column number. It works if you're doing a larger table where you have multiple columns, then you would need both. You don't need to put both in here. And since we only picked one column, we already know what column it's going to be, so we don't need to fill out the column number. We only need to fill out the row number. And the row number is which reference of row do we want to pull. So like we put 1, it would pull our first A2. It's from A2 to A5. So this would be 1. This would be 2. This would be 3. This would be 4. And since we want Marty, we want to pull 2. So click OK, and it pulls in West. So that is the right answer because we know Marty is the second choice. But what if you had like 1,000 records here? You don't know how far. I mean, you're not going to manually search for Marty. It could be a more complex table. So we need a way to tell us this 2. And to do that, we're going to use the match function. What the match function is going to do, it's going to replace this 2 with the match function. It's going to look in this table. It's going to find Marty as the number 2 slot, and it's going to put it in here. So instead of the number 2, it's going to have the match function, which returns a 2, and it basically works the same way. So let's say I'm just going to do the match function right here, just to show you. Match.
So the lookup value is Marty. We're going to look up Marty in this array. And you're just going to have to make sure this array, see it's B2 to B5, is the same as what it's going to be looking up in here, which is A2 to A5. You got to have the same number of rows. And the match type, we can put 0. So then you're going to it's going to return exactly where the match is. I'm going to click OK, and your result is a 2, which is what we wanted, because if you look here, here's 1 and here's 2. So now if we take this formula, I'm going to copy it, Control C. Now I'm going to go up to here, and instead of the 2, I'm going to replace the 2 with this formula. Press OK, and there. We've just done an index match formula. It returned west. It's what's Marty's division, what it does. If we break it out again, match, it's looking for G3, which is Marty, in this column, which is the second choice. And now the index looks in here, A2 to A5, and it returns the second choice, which is west. And there we go. So we just did an index match. And an index match can work with multiple items also. So let's say we want to find Marty's March sales. I mean, we've got Marty here, and we got the March sales here. So we want to find Marty as the salesman and March sales as the number of the sales that we want. So we'll do it with the index part first. So we're going to do index, click OK, and what's the array? Array would be this whole table, since we need to find a couple items. We need to find Marty, and we need to find March sales. What row number do we want to pull? So we want 2, because Marty's the second row. So we want a 2. Which column do we want to pull? If we start here, so this is 1, column 2, column 3, column 4. So we want the March sales, so it'd be column 4. Click OK, and it's 14,769. So if we look, we got Marty, we go over, and there's 14,769. So, I mean, we basically did find what we needed. However, we want to pull it off of this information. So if this information ever changes, say right now it's March sales. If this ever became, now we want February sales, we want to refer to this instead of just putting in a number. So that's why we want to do a match. So the match is going to replace, instead of us manually counting 1, 2, 3, 4, or manually counting row 1, row 2, the match will just do that for us. So let's do the first step of the match for Marty, which is what we've already done. It was just in the last time. So we're going to look up Marty in what lookup array here, and the match type of 0. So you see it returns a 2 because it goes 1, 2, and there's Marty. Now we're going to do the second part of the match for the column headings here. Do match. The lookup value is March sales. The lookup array is here. Now remember, we want to start on salesman because this is where we started in our main index. It has to be the same number of columns. Press a 0, and it becomes a 4. So when we look at our formula 2 and 4, this is just going to be replaced by these match functions. So these match functions will be copied into here. So let's copy them in. So here's the match. Control C. Now instead of the 2, we're going to put that in there. Press OK, and it's still the same. And now we're going to put the 4 part in there. Control C. Now I'm going to delete the 4 and then Control V to paste it in. So there. So we still have the result of 14,769. I can delete these formulas now. And basically what we're doing is here's the match. We're looking for what's in G3, Marty, in this column. And then we're looking for here in H3 in this row, and it becomes March sales. So now say all of a sudden this changes. Now we want Jen. Boom, this changes automatically because now it does a match for Jen and it still does March sales. It's 79.61. And this can change also. Say instead of March sales, we had Feb sales for February. Now it's 12.928, which matches right here. So it becomes very interactive and you can change it. So that's what makes the match formula very powerful, other than just going in and saying I want the fourth column, which is March sales, because then if you can want it to change, it can change a lot easier. So that's two examples of how the index match function works. I mean, it's tough to master, it takes a little time, but if you practice it enough, it's way more powerful than the VLOOKUP, and you can use it in a lot more instances. Thanks a lot. Okay, we're going to go over the offset match functions here. The offset match, it's a very powerful function, and it has many different uses that you can use it for. I'm going to go over just two of those uses, and what it basically will do, it will pull in either one cell or a range of cells depending on how you set it up. So there's multiple criteria that you have to set up with it, but with the match, it allows you to kind of pick those functions by finding the item with the match. So it allows you to really make this pretty powerful. First example I'm going to go over is pulling a number from a range. Say we have these list of sales here, and here's like your bonus that you get if you break the sales threshold. Say, like in here, if you get $50,000 in sales, you get a $2,000 bonus. If you break $50,000, say you have $50,001, you'll get a $3,000 bonus because it breaks it. Now, VLOOKUP can sort of do this, where you can look in a range and not find an exact match, but what it's going to do, it's going to pull the lowest value, or the highest value that's below the number. So if you're doing the 50,000, the highest value below it, below 50,000 is 35,000. To do something where you have a higher value, like say if you have 51,000, you want to go to this next range here. To do that, we can use the offset match function. And I'm going to go through the example first with just the offset, to just kind of show you how offset works. And then we'll put the match part in there to show you this bonus. So let's say somebody had $45,000 in sales. Let's do the offset part first. So what offset's going to do, it's going to pretty much, you tell the reference, this is where you're going to start. So we're going to say we're going to just start right here on cell A1. Rows would be, how many rows down do you want to move? So in our example, if we have $45,000 in sales, they're going to get a $2,000 bonus because we broke this $35,000 threshold. So we're going to go up to this next one. So we want to get to this cell right here, to B5. So if we're starting at A1, we want to go down 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. So this becomes a 4. And columns, we want to move over one column because we're here. So we want to move over one column to column B. So we're going to move 1. And the height and width just tells how big of range, because right now here's our starting point. Since we just want the one cell, we're going to put it's just a height of 1 and a width of 1. If we're pulling a range, which I'm going to show you in the next example, you can make this larger and it'll pull a full range for you. So now if we click OK, we have $2,000 because the offset started at A1, went down 4 and over 1, and we have 2,000. But we're manually putting in this 4 because we know it's $45,000 in sales. What if we wanted to make this interactive? So Excel is going to look for this $45,000 and then go up to this number and pull it over. So we want to do the match function to that. So we want a match function that's going to give us a number 4 as a result. So let's do that. We got match. And we're going to start off with the lookup value. which is $45,000. I mean, this could also be a reference, like if we had the number 45,000 here in F1, then we would put F1. But I'm just to show you how this works, I'm just typing it in. The lookup array is going to be here. These are all the numbers from A2 to A6. And the match type is going to be -1 because we want the number that's higher than it. So it will become a 4. Click OK, and we got a 4. So what it's doing, it goes 1, 2, 3. It sees that $45,000 here, and because it's a -1, it's going to go up to this 50,000, and it gives us a 4. So now we can just simply take this part, copy it, okay, Control C, and replace the 4 that's up in this formula here, and press enter, and we still get $2,000. I can delete this, and see it's looking up the 45,000, and it goes here. Say, let's change this to see if this works. See, we had 65,000 in sales. Press enter, and now it's all of a sudden it's 4,000 because 65,000 falls in right here. It goes up to the 75,000 because the match is -1, and then it goes over 1, and you get 4,000 in bonus. And that's how the first example of how the offset match will work. Okay, now we're going to go over our second example of the offset match function. Okay, in this example, what we have here are we got a list of a couple employees and their sales total for the year, for 12 months. We got all the sales in here, and we want to be able to pull sales in here by using these drop downs here. So we've got employee, we can pick any of the 4 employees, the months, which start month do you want to do, what end month. So like in this example, say we want to pull like from February to May for Joe, for these sales. So I mean, you can do this for anybody, but I just set this up like this so we can have kind of an interactive sales number that can keep changing, and I'll show you how it changes after we do the function. But we're going to use the offset match to be able to sum this up. Obviously, we're going to use the sum function because we're trying to add to sum this up. So let's start off by just typing it in. So equals sum parentheses, and what we're going to do is we're going to sum that. We're going to use the offset function really to give us the range. So we're going to start off offset, and we can look at here what we're looking for. So first is reference. So where do we want to start? We're going to start just in the upper corner, which is cell A6. Now we put comma in rows. This is how many rows down do we want to move. Since we're going to Joe, since we know this, we want to move down 1 row. So we put a 1. Next, how many columns do you want to go over? So we go 1, 2. We want to move over 2 columns because we started off in A and we want to go to C. So we're moving over 2 columns. Now here's where you get to pick the width and height of the array. If you just wanted 1 cell, we would just put 1, 1, because then it would just pull February. But since we want to pull this range from February to May, we're going to start here and go across. So how high is this going to be? This is always going to be 1 because we're just pulling in 1 employee, so it's only 1 row high. So we're putting a 1. And how wide? This is where it's going to be the interactive. See how it's February to May, so it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 cells wide. So if we put a 4, put in parentheses, press enter. All right, it just gave us that quick error because I had to put double parentheses. See, I just put the 1 parentheses for the offset, but I also have to put a second parentheses for the sum. So that's what I just forgot to do there. But Excel just puts it in there for you, and it gives it. So, and if you look here, the sum is 6677. Just by adding these 4 up, it comes out to 6677. But I mean, we had to manually go in and do all this. So I mean, if we were actually doing that, it would just be easier to just do sum and then highlight these cells. But if we want to do an interactive where it's going off of these items here, we can use the match function, and we're gonna have to do a couple match functions in order to be able to pull this. So let's look at this. So the first part is A6. It's always gonna be A6, so we don't have to do anything with that. The next one is a 1. So we want to go down and pretty much find Joe and tell us that's how many rows we're gonna go down. So we're gonna need to do a match function to find Joe. So we're gonna insert the match function, and the lookup value is cell B1, and the lookup array is just the names of the employees, and the match type is 0, because if we put a 0, then it's gonna look for an exact match, and it's gonna give us the exact location, not above it, not below it. And it came out with a 1 because it started here, and it says, oh, it's the first cell, so it's a 1. So what we can do now, we can copy this, Control C. Now move over here. Now in place of this 1, just delete that and do Control V, put it in there. We press Enter, and we still have 6677 because it's still going down 1 over 2, and then it's pulling this range. So the next part is the 2. The 2 means it's going over 2 spots. What we want to do here is find the month to tell us that it's going to go over 2 spots. So we need to do another match function to find the month. So the lookup value is February. The lookup array are all these months. Match type again is 0. Click OK, and it's a 2. See, like if we change this to March, it becomes a 3. As it goes 1, 2, 3. We'll change it back to February, and it's a 2. So now I'm going to copy this, Control C. I'm going to replace the 2 in here, Control V, and we still got it, 6677, because it's Joe went down 1, goes over 2 spots, and starts at February. Now the next part is the height. It's the 1. So we're on the height. It's always going to be 1 because we're always just looking up one person. So we don't have to do anything with that. We can just always leave it as a 1. But now here's the 4. This is the toughest part because you have to say how wide this is. And you pretty much have to do 2 match functions because you have to take this one and subtract out this one. So let's just do the first match function for May. I mean, it's going to work the same as February, pretty easy. You're looking up May, and the lookup array are all these months. Match type is 0. So you get a 5. So now what we can do is, if we're going to take May and we want to subtract February, we can do that. However, it just puts the second spot, and we want to include this spot. So like 5 minus 2, which is February, would come out to a 3. But when Excel wants to tell you how wide this range is, a 3 would only give you to April. So you have to add 1 to it because it doesn't count February when it's kind of doing the subtraction. So, I mean, some of this sometimes is hit and miss. You just kind of have to play around with it. You want to know that you want to get a 4 here because you want this 4 wide. And month 5 minus month 2 would be 3. So we have to add a 1 to it. So, but we can just simply do is say we take this match, we copy it, Control C. Now we go to this formula and say minus this. So this is really May minus February, and it gives us a 3. But we do need it 4 because we need this to be 4 wide, and it doesn't take into account the month that you're looking at. So all we got to do is just do plus 1, add 1 to it, and now it's a 4. So do Control C, and now we add this in and replace. Instead of having a 4 in here, we have this long formula with match there, and it's still 6677. It's still these 4. Now let's just change this up just to show you how now this is interactive. Instead of going in and manually changing it, I mean, we don't even need these anymore. We can delete those. Say now we want John. Now it's 5208. Adding these 4 up will come out to 5208. We can do Tina, 10,975. See, it's a higher number because I mean there's two of them right here. It's 3,000. This is almost 3,000. And the last one of Jeff, that comes up to 5,379. And you can also do February, say you want for March. This is only highlighted just because I manually highlighted this. It doesn't have anything to do with the actual formula. So, I mean, that's why this isn't changing, but I just wanted to be here. See now if it's, I can just unformat this. And, sorry. So now all we've got is, say if we want March to May, I mean, we could just highlight these if we wanted to a different color. But I mean, you don't have to do that. I'm just doing that just to show you what it is. But this is just how the offset match will work. I mean, this looks pretty complicated, but as you see, when you did it step by step, one by one, and then you just copy and paste it into there, it's a lot easier. And now you have a very interactive formula, which will give you sales on demand. Thanks a lot. All right, we're going to go over the VLOOKUP trim functions here. This whole function really is just kind of an error prevention type function. When you do the VLOOKUP, it's all based around the VLOOKUP, which will pull data from another table. But sometimes you get an error based on the text of it, and the trim function is just kind of helps prevent some of those errors. So it's best to see by going through an example. And first, we're just going to do a VLOOKUP here. We've got the salesman here, and we want to find the March sales. So to do that, we're going to do a VLOOKUP. We're going to pull in this name, and we're going to pull in the March sales, which is the fourth column. So let's do that. We'll do VLOOKUP. We're going to look up Marty Jones in this table. We want to make sure the salesman's on the leftmost column, which it is. We want 1, 2, 3, fourth column. We don't put false because it's an exact match. There, and we have NA. If we copy this down, we have 2 NAs, which means that it's an error, which means it didn't find Marty Jones in this table, and 1 where it did. So if we look at this closer, we're like, okay, the Marty Jones here, and there's also Marty Jones here. Why is this not pulling in? If you look closer, okay, we're on Marty Jones here. We put our cursor up here. There's no spaces here, and there's 1 space between Marty and Jones. If we go here and cell A4, it goes right to the end, and there's 1 space between Marty and Jones. If we go here, there's 1 space, but there's a space before Marty, and here, there's 2 spaces in between Marty and Jones. Sometimes, either when you're typing it, you might by accident put 2 extra spaces, or sometimes when you import data from another spreadsheet or CSV file, it's going to give you these types of errors. So that's one of the main error checks to find out when you get an NA. You first want to see if the name is in there. If it is, you got to make sure that it's exact. To get rid of this, we want to use the trim function. So let's say, let me show you how the trim function works. All it does is gets rid of all unwanted spaces. It doesn't get rid of all spaces. It's still going to leave a space where there should be one, like 1 space in between a name, between 2 words. So if we do trim, parentheses, say Marty Jones, which is cell A2. Now if you look at it, you can tell there's no spaces at the beginning, and there's only 1 space in between here. So now this should match. So what we can do, instead of looking up cell A2, which is this, we can insert a function right in here called trim A2. So now instead of looking up Marty space Jones, it's really looking up Marty space Jones in here. Now when we press OK, there. Now we've got our result. And if we copy this down, it's showing up everywhere. Because even if there's a space here, trim is taking that space out of there. And the VLOOKUP is only looking at the correct form of the word, which is Marty space Jones. It's going through here, and like there it is, Marty space Jones. It finds it, goes to the 2nd, 3rd, 4th column, pulls in 14,769, and that is our result. So that's an overview of how to use the VLOOKUP trim function.